So if you have not yet, you write the talk today. You didn't know you were coming in here today to write a sermon, but you are. So if you got a piece of paper and you have it with you, our ushers and our greeters will come around to pick those up from you. Thank you. And you can kind of flag one of them at any time and give it to them. And then we'll also take some from our live streamers. So today is kind of a fun one. You get to do little demi sermons. You get to ask what is on your heart, and we will do our best to give you the unity take and where we are in our own spiritual practices and what we've got. So let's go ahead and get started. Are you ready? Bending over isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, and I would have worn a longer clothes. Yeah.
Give it up for the ladies. All right, what is an affirmation? Good question. What is an affirmation? Who wants to start?
That's the expert right there. But I'll just begin with...
Funny you should ask. That's one of the big themes of this weekend at the Silent Unity Retreat was affirmation. What we did was really dispel some false ideas of what affirmation is not, so we could get to what affirmation is. So affirmation is not mere positive thinking. It's not just hopeful thinking, wishful thinking, magical thinking. It's not saying, you know, when my wallet's empty, I am a millionaire, because, like, how does your body believe that, right? So what an affirmation really is a statement of what is true. What is the truth that we can anchor to? And a real affirmation is one that not only is a truth, an absolute truth that we know spiritually, but it's also accessible. So like I like to say, like when I'm sneezing and snotty and feverish and I'm shivering in my bed, to say I am whole and healthy feels like nonsense to my brain and especially to my body, you know? It's hard to get that. And I know affirmation teachers say it anyway, but I say find an accessible truth, because even in that condition, I can say, truthfully, every cell in my body is thrumming with divine life, and even now, every cell is strengthening me. See, that's true. It's truth, and I can kind of calm down into that and allow myself to believe that into the state of well-being of my body.
Very good. Another thing that I like to remember about affirmations is to make them fun. If it's something that doesn't hit you, if it's something that doesn't sit with you or really, you know, dig in, then don't use it. Like one of my favorite ones I've heard is the universe loves me, supports me, and wants me to win. And I have a friend, a Unity minister friend, he always says, fun just follows me around. And so find ones that actually turn you on. Find ones that stir you, that are not just words that someone else gave you, but find ones that have flavor.
Sizzle.
There you go.
Exquisite.
The next is, how do we find our true calling? How do we find our true calling?
You know, for me, in my particular experience, my true calling has shifted over time. It's what feels right in the moment. When something is just calling me and my heart just bursts and I am just sizzling. That's a calling. And more, I think, as I evolve, my true calling always has to do somehow to serve others, in the awareness that there is no other, in the realization of whatever it is that I am involved in has to somehow be serving to humanity and an awareness of the truth, no matter what, of the truth of our oneness and the truth of that we are spiritual beings here to shine the light. So it really doesn't matter what I do, it's from the consciousness of where I'm coming from.
Exactly. I try to remind people, especially depending on your brain style and how stressed out you can get in this human condition, that everywhere we are living our true calling. Everywhere you are, there are relationships. Everywhere you are, there is an opportunity for wisdom. Everywhere you are, there is an opportunity to share love. That is our true calling. We tend to think of it as being what we do, but the true calling is more about who we be. How am I becoming in each moment? Yeah. And then if you're looking at practical ways how to integrate your life and feel like you're kind of in the flow of more of your calling, just look at what you would be doing if you weren't paid. What would you be reading? What would you be talking about? What would you be giving to? How would you be living if it had nothing to do with money and there were no limits? And look at those things that turn you on in those ways and start making more room for them in your life and start talking to other people and exploring who gets paid for this. Mary Manon Morrissey, I think it's her that says in her abundance and prosperity class, she likes to say you can get paid for anything. And there was an example of someone saying, well, I just want to sit on the couch and lay there and act dead. And she's like, actually, you can get paid for that too. Go to Hollywood. So. Here's the next question. I would like to comment that I am grateful for the non-judgmental open arms I receive here at Unity. And that is one of our principles and our practices, is to be a loving, open, and affirming community, to honor that everyone has their own spiritual truth and has their own guidance and lives by their own light, and so we honor that. How are we accepted in heaven if we have, and I think this says smashed certain bugs who make it into our homes? How are we accepted in heaven if we have smashed certain? Is that one for me? No, just kidding.
Bugs, Erin.
No, I try not to. But people might feel guilt around that if I talk about how I try not to too much. But I'm not saying that I haven't just recently done something about the ants.
I bless them to a better life.
I think that there is, our ancient wisdom traditions have much to teach us when it comes to this. Our ancient wisdom traditions teach us that there is life and that there is a good death and that we're all part of the circle of life. And so they do everything with reverence, and they do everything with acknowledging that life and prayer and sacredness. And for me, that's what it comes back to, is really getting in touch, taking nothing for granted, acknowledging if you're, going to smoosh the bug, well, be in light around it, honor this life force, honor the life form, know that you to someone else in outer space are an ant. No, just kidding. Well, maybe not, but just know that, just know the cycle of life and just honor that and be in reverence. I think our ancient traditions show us that. We got a lot of questions.
2 baskets.
Yeah. All right. How do I make it through divorce? How do I help my kids through this difficult transition, life change? How do I survive the days without my babies? Great question.
Well,
Do you speak
I've gone
first?
through a divorce. And again, I can only speak from my experience, but you know what? It deepened me in the unity way of being. And I used these tools, like I anchored it with every part of my being. And it ended up guiding me to ministry. But to me, the most important thing is allow the process, allow the feelings to come forth. My heart was broken, and I realized a broken heart is just open to greater love, and have all the support from the community and from your loved ones.
Yeah, good. So I think the same thing. Allow the transformation process to happen. Invite it in. Take your feet off the brakes and off of all the parts of you that want to say no, and say to my soul, let all the strength come in and bring it on. Whatever I am here to get, whatever I am here to learn, however I am here to transform, bring it on. And just allow yourself to be at one with the process rather than in resistance to it. Just keep affirming and saying, this is life living itself. And just be in that space, and also lean on other people. Begin to open up to the world around you and recognize that you are surrounded by people who have survived this. Whenever we're going through a challenge, whether it's divorce or whether it's something else, look around at the people. Think about how many people go through it. If 50% of people go through it, if however many people have the same health challenge that you have, just look around and go, they survived this. and look, that smile that I see on that person, that's a person that was once where I was. And breathe into that, get the support of that. And then as far as how to be in the moments without your children and how to help your children through it, help them develop their own spiritual practice. Help affirm with them that they have an individual, not an enmeshed, but an individual relationship with everyone in their life. So take it as an opportunity to set up and to educate and to support healthy relationships. Let them know that each parent has their own relationship with them, and use it as your own practice to not get into enmeshment or a manipulation of saying you need to see anyone else on this planet through my lens. Affirm their one-on-one connections, affirm their power, and look straight to them to know their truth, that they are whole, that they are not damaged, and that in fact, if this is the experience, you're there to stand in the good with them and to know that good will come from this, and start seeing that. Start seeing how they're developing strength that other people might not have had the opportunity to develop. Though it may be from something you never wanted to have or have happen, just know that. When you look at them, see strength, see love, see these increased capabilities. And then as far as how to be without them on the days that you don't have them, give that day and dedicate that day as a gift to them, to show them that as a parent and as an individual, you're also a man, or you're also a woman. You're also someone that has their own life. So begin developing your own skills, begin developing your own interests, and don't let that time that you're not with them go to waste. Let that time be captured and dedicate it to them seeing how someone thrives on the planet, how someone utilizes time to see what makes them come alive. So let every moment without them be a dedication to showing them how resilient people can be, how we can navigate, and how we can create a thriving life.
Yes.
How can we unblock our giving nature?
By giving.
Amen. Circulating. We're an inlet and an outlet. If you feel blocked, start giving, start serving, start tithing, start sharing and helping people.
Right. Any lack, any perception I have of lack, I remember a time when, with my sweetheart Giles, when I would feel like, I'm not getting enough affection, not enough attention. I mean, if I examine it enough, I realize that's the very thing I have been withholding. And if I would give that which I am seeking, that's the answer. That's the spiritual answer. It may take a lifetime to learn that, but that's the simple but challenging principle.
And even a small giving, a smile, just a smile. Smile to the person next to you. You're going to start feeling much better. As we give, we receive, and we start being in the flow.
Absolutely. Bless everything around you. Just start affirming and blessing. What did you call it, Ben, the other day? There was something about, we were having a conversation. It was something about really blissing out with everything, just everything that comes to you. I say to people, bless fest. Start having a bless fest, especially if it's the opposite of what you want to do. But say to people when you're at a restaurant and someone, gives you a smile or does something, say under your breath, I do it all the time, just, I love you and I appreciate you. I love you and I appreciate you. If you see someone smile at you, just thank you for being that smile on the planet. Just keep the bless fest going. What are your thoughts on the use of new thought principles such as positivity and self-healing to execute spiritual abuse by spiritual leadership? And it said affirmation too. So what are your thoughts on the use of new thought principles such as affirmation, positivity, and self-healing to execute spiritual abuse by spiritual leadership? To breathe into the content of this question. I think sometimes we can have a disconnect. If any sort of positivity, affirmation, and self-healing principles are shared in a way, and of course we always have to say we do our best intention to share it in a way that everyone has to use their own discernment and unity. We try to say that a lot. Check this against your heart. Because we could be talking from a principle, not knowing the specifics of an experience. But I think any time that a spiritual principle is used to create separation within oneself, guilting oneself, the old shame and blame stuff, of like, well, I'm failing this principle, so I somehow should be feeling joyful, blissful, whole, and happy all the time. And so any sort of pressing of the principles that gets us out of the moment or out of our wholeness in our human condition as well, I think could, be on that side of what you could call spiritual abuse of a principle, metaphysical malpractice.
Or what's coming to me, for example, is ignoring what's right in front of you for you to do the facts and just say, oh, all is well. Everything's in divine order. Yes, ultimately, everything is divine order, but this is mine to take care of.
Right. And I think interpreting for people, oh, this is what's going to come from this, or this good. That's part of our own journey to unfold that, not to have someone, tell us that. We can stand with each other and be an affirmation of that. How can I feel like I belong here in this world now?
Right now, wherever you are, just stop and breathe and know, I am here. I belong. I am. Whatever is going on, there's a thought that you don't belong. Look at that. That's not the truth of who you are. You belong. You're here. And you're divine. And you're the divine light appearing as uniquely as you.
I know for me, I tend to go to the affirmation, this is life living itself, to work with the parts of my mind that call death wrong, or call illness wrong, or call the heartaches wrong, call the horrors that we see wrong, that has a really hard time with that. And when I can get into that place of, right now in this moment, this is life living itself, then I don't feel like it's an aberration of the expression of life. I feel more like I'm one with it, and it's still full and it's still intense, but I don't feel like I don't belong with it. I can look at it and go, this is part of the being of my creation. This is part of the circle of life. This is part of how humanity expresses. And then I can feel more a part of it rather than everything is a mistake around me or within me.
A lot of times I think that feeling of not belonging comes from a feeling of maybe being invisible, feeling my own sense of lack of worth in some way, right? That maybe I don't deserve to be seen and known. But it's easy to cast myself out of the kingdom and feel as if others don't accept me, or I don't belong because I've not been embraced. But it's most often my own imagination of that leads me to seem to feel as if it's having to do not with me but with others. Do you know what I'm saying? But the feeling of not belonging, that it's somehow others' responsibility for me to be okay. It's a big challenge to get to that place where I take responsibility for my own insertion of my own presence, my presence, to be visible to myself first.
What do you say to a teen that says they're not sure they believe in God?
Well, I had one of those who's now an adult who says the same thing. And I say, well, tell me about the God that you don't believe in. Tell me about that God. And what I hear coming from, this is my own son, about that God is, well, I don't believe in some, rewarder and punisher of humankind. I don't believe in a God that, that has some particular will for me that is going to be a hardship of some kind. I don't believe in a God that would, that would withhold, that would be capricious, that would say yes to somebody and say no to somebody else. I don't believe in a God that would heal one person and not another. I just can't believe in that God. And I say, well, guess what? I don't believe in God either, certainly not that one. I don't believe in that kind of God. So when my son says, I'm an atheist, I said, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
For me, I would just ask, what do you love, and how about nature? How about, you know, even quantum physics that says that there's life everywhere present and that we're all connected. Invite a conversation of the spiritual qualities that we know is what we know as God. And then, hey, we have this in common.
This one says, why don't we have a visible reminder of Jesus Christ in our center? And I think that's a good question. And look to your left and look to your right.
Good one. Exactly right.
In Unity, we don't focus on the cross and we don't focus on the crucifixion, simply because if you were to have the most magnificent child that ever walked the planet, that led all of humanity into love and peace and understanding, and they died by a bullet wound, or they died by a noose, or they died by a cross, would that be where you would fixate, and would that be what you would hold up and constantly be talking about? Would that be the symbol that you wanted to be shared over and over? And that's not a judgment or a criticism on that symbol. If that symbol works for people and they really connect with that part of our lives that is suffering and overcoming, then that's wonderful. But on Unity, we kind of take pride in that our focus is on pulling forth the affirmations. And, we think we spend enough time knowing about how brutal and hard humanity can be on itself and on each other. And we think that we are part of the new creation that is to bring us into the light and into the teachings of how did we live, not how did we die. What should I say to a friend to let them know that I want them to come visit Unity? I don't want to sound too arrogant, like I have the greatest church.
Well, I'll speak from the spiritual communities that I'm familiar with. Sometimes it's just a simple Sunday where there is going to be an activity that they might resonate with, and then they can see that nobody's going to try to convert them into anything, and that we're normal people, loving people, and they sometimes
Speak for
have to stay.
yourself. Speak for yourself.
And I would just say, too, speak from your heart on what it's done for you. And just to say to them, I want to support you in general in a spiritual practice. So, I've read a lot. I don't think you're a Unity person without having church dipped a bit and know about different places. But if you can support someone in their whole journey, there's no attachment to someone ending up there. And you can just say, I see you're struggling. Here's some teachings on Buddhism. Here's where I go Unity. Here's some teachings on, a deepening Christianity. Here's this, here's that. I want to support you in finding something that fits for you. And I see Unity as a spirituality more than I see it as a church. So all those things that you think might turn you off. And I used to tell people when I went to Unity of Boulder, I said, either way, even if you don't like the message or everything else in the service, you'll like the music. So just come for a concert. And then if people like it, they like it. So.
A book study is also a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last question, and there are so many more. Thank you for all these incredible questions, and we'll be using them throughout the year. But for the last question of this Sunday, how can I feel loved?
Oh, we just answered that question. Wasn't the question, how can I learn to be a giver?
And how can I unblock my giving?
Unblock my giving? By giving? How can I, what was the question?
Feel
how
loved.
can I feel loved? Yeah, how can I feel loved? Here's a story that I heard Reverend Jim Rosemurgy, a wonderful Unity minister, say one time. He talked about babies that were, I can't remember even what country they were in, but they were babies that were orphaned babies in an orphanage. And someone went into there, and these babies were swaddled in their cribs. And they were fed, and all their, the primary, or what you would say, the essential nutrients and things like that were given to them. But nobody picked them up. and hugged them, and they were not thriving. And so somebody who was paying attention to that went in and changed that whole dynamic and paradigm and started holding those children. And of course, lo and behold, they were thriving. And so it was noted by a reporter, see, all they needed was to be loved, L-O-V-E-D. And a wise person who got this whole paradigm shifted said, no, they needed to let their love out. They needed a vehicle for their love to be released. That's the fact of it. Looking for love, let it out.
Beautiful. So if that's you today, or if that's someone that you know, and certainly we'll all run across people that have that feeling, and we all are that person at times that has that feeling, start learning your love languages. Start going into nature and looking around at nature and seeing, do I feel love when I'm looking at the green grass growing and looking at a lake and looking at a mountain, when I'm feeling the wind? Do I feel loved when I'm riding my bike? Do I feel loved when I'm with other people and gathering, when I'm having a meal? Do I feel loved when I go to an animal shelter to pet someone's animal, to pet and nurture and to give love to these creatures? What makes me feel loved? Go around on YouTube and see some videos and say, what makes me feel myself and feel that nurturing? Look at Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Languages of Love, and figure out what your love languages are to see where you could start to interpret other things as love. Maybe someone's giving a whole bunch of acts of service all around you, but they're not engaging at all in physical touch, and physical touch is your love language. Find some touchy friends. But start learning yourself, because the truth, as far as the affirmation, the truth is the universe loves you. It is loving you all the time. It is loving you with the sunset. It is loving you with the people you walk by. Start learning how you receive that love and how you love to give that love, and start generating and creating more opportunities for that, and then become a translator. Start translating all the other forms that don't feel like love, whether it's giving gifts, acts of service, physical touch. Start translating those and going, that's them loving me.
And one of the ways that I find has always been very beneficial for me is journaling. And maybe after going for that walk and so forth, journaling on the ways that life loves me. Because if I believe that life loves me, then I can relax. If I believe that life is against me, then I'm all tense and looking for trouble. And, so, in the morning, when I wake up, realize, well, God is love. And there's just a field of love everywhere. And I am love. Love is right where I am.
It's what we said in the retreat
Yes.
weekend. Remember, guys, right? God is love. I am love. Therefore, I can be loving.
Namaste.